So I would like to give a context. I wanted to do this first time, second time, and I forgot. Some context, more like the philosophy of therapy, so to say, the understanding, because I'm bringing here all these various teachings and modalities, and I would like to share what's the philosophy behind it. So again, I am saying that I haven't come up with this, and don't believe me, take it, open-minded and see how it feels right for you, and try to check for yourself. The only thing I've done is that I verified to a large degree these things. So I verified it is true, it's true and it works. And then gradually I could see how they all fit together, and actually they need each other. Somehow going into, and also this what I'm going to say now, it answers the question that was asked before: what's the connection between non-duality and processing? So and this is what I somehow talk to clients in the first session. Appropriate, put in a way appropriate to where they are, and just so that they come to work with me. I want them to know how I look at the world and myself and them. So I mean, how these teachings look at the how these teachings and modalities, what's the understanding? So it's like that. Basically, what we really are, as that being consciousness, that which is aware right now, is aware of thoughts, feelings, aware of our experience, and that which has been always aware of our experience when the body was a toddler or 5 or 6 or 7. So what we really are / our true self / our real identity doesn't need healing, doesn't need therapy, is wonderfully perfect just as it is, divinely intelligent, creative, loving, gentle, and it's impersonal. It's God's consciousness perceiving through this body mind, that body mind. So nothing is wrong at the level of our true identity. This being said, what happens is that as we are like a little kid and all that, this consciousness somehow is bombarded with a lot of information. And so we start being conditioned. We are taught what we are. Hey, you are Mihai, I'm Mihai, I'm 3 years and 9 months. Oh, what a beautiful boy, So we are taught that we are this name. Then we are taught how the world is, and so we are conditioned with programs and a lot of mental information, and this is a pine tree, this is like that, this is like this. So this spontaneous, open, indestructible, divinely intelligent being is now blasted with a lot of programs, and then we don't have a firewall. Basically, there's no antivirus system, there's no firewall to say, hey, but this is bullshit, this is not true. So the consciousness is kind of open and innocent. There's some innocence, and there's like, oh yeah. And so we take all these programs, and then now on top of that, what happens is that we are raised in a society where people are also programmed, and our parents are programmed and you know, unconscious or living in this mode of being asleep. They call it in the fourth way, being asleep. Our consciousness, although divinely intelligent and wonderfully, you know, it is in the setting of being asleep, and this sleep is like characterized by perpetually being identify with mental processes, identify with thoughts. So our consciousness becomes identified and constantly identifying velcroed to thoughts, stories, as well as feelings. And so we're either checked out or identified with some fragment of what we are. So the people who are all around us, they are kind of like that. And then also what happens on top of conditioning, there is wounding. The child ideally needs somebody to be, the child needs to be seen and felt. And we to be attuned to the child and to receive unconditional love and support and respect and safety, you know. So what happens is that the wounding is like one of these two things. We don't get what we need. We don't get what we need. So there's absence, you know, parent absence, alcoholic, or coming and going, or abandonment, stuff like that. So we don't get what we need, or we get what we don't need. You know, like put down, criticism, what's wrong with you, hostility, violence, you know, and our consciousness is so receptive and very vibrantly like a flower. So all these that they happen, they create like a hurt. And then at that moment, soon afterwards, and also they are repeated, these kind of jabs are repeated, the absence or the hurt, to the point that at some point in the young organization of the child, then the child kind of understands something like, oh, I see. So that's how it is here. And it develops these early messages about the world and about oneself. And so this is the formation in the first years of our subconscious organization. And so there's a time when we develop these belief systems, although the child is not aware that he's developing this belief system, but there's like this, some sense of, am I safe? Am I safe in the world? The world is safe. Is it safe to be myself? Am I loved? So we start also from the quality of attention that the child gets. This influences tremendously, fully, the sense of self. So the more negative attention or absence attention, then this creates, you know, will be later problems about trust, problems with trusting love, trusting oneself, trusting relationships, trusting our feelings. So we start to develop all this, what is called the deficiency story. Like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm not okay. I'm scum. I'm unworthy. I'm unworthy for love. I don't deserve. World is not safe. Anyway, so we started to develop this story, and then also what happens on top of this wounding, what happens is that our system, somehow consciousness with the child body mind, somehow it's very resilient actually, and then it whatever is happening, there's this organicity, it's called in Hakomi, this inner impulse to survive and to thrive and to keep going, you know. Just like the body you cut, you know, there's this organicity happening, the level of the cells restructuring, the same psychologically, it's like, okay, to adapt and to survive. So first the child gets this, I see, so I can't be like this is not okay, I'm bad, or I'm whatever. So then what happens is that the child, in order to survive, adapts in a certain way to match the environment. And we develop, on top of the limiting beliefs that are painful, of course, develop some adaptative self. They call it sometimes strategic self. So, okay, knowing that it's like that, I'm going to be like this. So some people, as a child, become some become very funny and a mascot, you know, which all the strategies and adaptations are created in order to get love and to avoid suffering. So we adapt in a way that will maybe get some love or be safe. So says, I think I mentioned before, some get into this producing pattern. I'm going to work really hard. Hopefully, if I work really hard a lot, then I'll get love someday. Or I'm going to be very charming and seducing, and I'm organized around to be noticed and liked and to be special, to get love and be okay, or to compensate for the deep feeling of insecurity and all that. They're all kind of strategic adaptations. And then so these start to form the sense of me, the me that is not the me as the awareness, the presence. So it's more like a story about me, and it's a whole conglomerate of like these limiting beliefs, feelings, adaptations, patterns. I'm just dealing with this life, you know. If we have to go into other lifetimes and all that, which could be true, could not be true, I guess we have to wait to see. Then if there's stories that all these tendencies and stuff from other past lifetime, our strength and all that, they activate at some point, and our weaknesses and patterns from other lifetimes, they activate too. On top of that, you have now also some of these hurts are really painful. So what's trauma? It's trauma, which is like some shock that somehow our system is not able to process it, like the antelopes in the jungle when, you know, they're able to process it fast and let go and move on, being happy antelope that's just been almost killed like 20 minutes ago. It's not traumatized. We lost this ability, and then so there's this shock, and then something is this fight, flight, freeze, or fawning. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawning, their response to some really painful experiences. And they are all very good because they are meant to help us survive. So sometimes it's good to fight. It's the right thing to fight. Sometimes it's the perfect thing to run. Sometimes it's the perfect thing to fold or fawn or all that. But the problem with that is remains this unmetabolized information in our consciousness. And then there's some stuck energy and unprocessed information. And then so that activates each time when something is somehow close to that. So we go into, usually we have one or two responses we go into. Anyway, so now trauma on top of that, deficiency story, adaptations. Then there's the pain body, I guess, you know, the beliefs, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, and my parents left me in a hotel and I ended up in a group home, and it's because of me. I'm unworthy, you know? So this is the mental aspect that usually we're not aware of. And then underneath, it's a lot of pain. So the pain body is more like the emotional aspect of this sense of me. Then we get also transmission, epigenetics, get some transmission of the pain body of our parents, our culture. And then you get Second World War, you get Auschwitz, you get genocide of the American Indians, and then the black and all that. So there's all this information kind of swirling through. So now all this thing, while being in a mode of being asleep, because we are in school, we are never taught to be aware, to be mindful. There's no course in who am I? Who am I? of course. So what happens now is that that's why the result of all this, although what we are is wonderfully perfect as it is, we are somehow not consciously in touch with that. And our sense of identity is into what is called the ego or the separate self. I like this separate self because no matter what type of flavor of ego we have, even if it's inflated, some people have this inflated, you know, some politicians, you know, some, so, oh, I'm so much better than you guys. I'm special, I'm better, special. Whether if it's inflated or deflated, collapse and all that, the common element is that a sense of separation, basically the sense of separation. And so basically our identity is a separate identity, which is manifests the sense of separation. It is both in our thinking as well as in our feeling body. You know, any loneliness, despair, unworthiness, fear, all this is feeling of separation. So that's why it's like that, basically. And now the solution, so as my teacher said, like the true self doesn't need healing. The false self cannot be healed. However, healing is happening, you know. When I say the false self cannot be healed, is that this me that we are identified with, of I'm unworthy, I'm you know, unlovable, there's something wrong with me. This me, it's not healable because it doesn't exist. You know, usually we don't bring this up into therapy because it's very deep stuff. However, this is what's up. So basically a dreamed character, it's hard to heal a dreamed character. So, but anyway, let's stay more practical. So now the path available is, so from this approach, it's more like the way to go is to uncondition and unprogram all these lies. Unprogram them, uncondition them, first at the intellectual level, first at the mental level, our thoughts and our beliefs and our judgments and all that. So, however, all this cannot be achieved in sleep. As Gurdjieff said in the fourth way, no work can be done in sleep. So nothing can be done. We can't change, before you can change some very sophisticated mechanism, you really first need to watch the mechanism, you know? So that's why in this approach and in many pathways, is that to develop this ability to become more conscious. Doesn't matter who you are Johnny or you are whatever, to become more, develop this ability to witness, to be mindful, to start to develop this ability to be less checked out in mental processing all the time, and to start to be aware of thoughts, start to be aware of feelings, start to be aware of feelings in the body. So it starts to be more like, there's more light into the system now. There's something that is able to watch. That which is able to watch and watching is our true self, although we are not aware of that, but it still does the job. So we develop some ability to be less hooked onto the story. This already creates a lot of, just to have a client, even a client who is not interested in spirituality or enlightenment, at some point they may realize that, oh man, I'm not the thoughts, I'm not my thoughts, you know? So then all this inner critic and all that. So, you know, once there's this witnessing, then there are more, there's some relief, there's ability to diminish identification and all that. So the way to go is to create more more ability to be present and observe. Yeah. And then now at this point, now as we are more aware of this stuff, we are challenging them. You know, they call it in CBT challenging cognitive distortions, right? But which is true. But like seeing from awareness this story, this deficiency story, and seeing for what it is. And so the path with this, there was some question about limiting beliefs, what to do with them, what's the path with them. So the path with them is to first become aware of them. They are subconscious, to become aware of them. So that to become more and more aware of them, and then to study them. What is the type of thought story that comes with that? And as the type of thought story comes with that, there comes a lot of in the body. So there's the under the iceberg, you know, what's underneath. So the way with the limiting beliefs, they are not just limiting beliefs. Actually, their identity. The problem is that their identity is in a limiting belief. It would be simpler if I'm like, oh, there's this belief I have, but I'm not that. No, we are like, I am unworthy. I am unlovable. There's something wrong with me. I am scum. I am deficient. So this is like, these limiting beliefs are identities, painful identities, you know? So the way to go is to be aware of them, and then to verify gradually that what it says is not true. So just to be aware of the belief is not enough. One needs to be convinced that this is not true. Second is that that's not me. So this belief, this identity, this belief is not true, actually is not true. And the work, the Byron Katie's work is very helpful to deal with strongly established mental identities like that. So, and then to realize that this is not me, you know. So first we address the mind, but then even if, let's say, we have become convinced to some degree that this story, this is a whole story, it's old news, it's not true, man, but it keeps coming and it keeps velcroing. So what happens is that if first there's a purification, let's say cleansing at the level of the mental formations, but that will be the first step. But even as we do that, we still have decades of feeling like that. So there's the feeling systems in the body. These are like the residual of having lived as a separate me for decades, and all the pain body is in the. So that's why, although you don't believe that is not true, you still sometimes feel like shit and all these strong feelings, you know? So that's part of the first. As long as we believe those and we know they are true, then it will keep generating pain. Once we stop believing them as true, there's still pain from the past. This is like a fan. They use this in these teachings, in spiritual teachings, that there's this moment of unplugging the fan. So which can be that recognition of our true nature. I'm not Mihai, I'm awareness. So let's say if this happens to a large degree, then this is already a major shift, or I'm not the thoughts, I'm the witness of the thoughts. So this unplugs the fan, but there's still momentum. There's momentum of this huge amount of imprints and trauma and all that. So even if one has in some Neo Advaita or non-dual teachings, they focus a lot on this, hey, I'm recognizing our true nature and understanding all this non-dual stuff, but this is not enough, because you cannot be at peace, cannot be at peace and what is called abiding as our true nature, as long as we don't process from awareness all this old stuff. And then there are old stuff we don't even know, you know, like 3 months old or something, or so. Now this goes, this, let's say, transpersonal psychotherapy and all that therapy of awakening. So we realize I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not this. You know, the neti, the process of discrimination they use in a lot of these teachings. I'm not these thoughts, I'm not this belief, I'm not this feeling, I'm not this concept, I'm not. So, and then we start to kind of have a glimpse that we are this presence. And then somehow this is also not enough. Shit, man, it's a lot of things to do. Huh? So some next step is to, okay, I'm not this. I've been busy with all this, which I'm not all the time. So I know I'm not that, and I am this. And now it's important to get more experiential knowledge about what we really are, and to verify that this presence that is now aware of thoughts and judgments or comments we have, this we believe. I was in a fourth way for a long time doing awareness work. However, I believe that this awareness is mine. It's personal. It's my personal special fucking awareness. And it's better than your awareness, man. So then now this is like spiritual ego and shit. And still you are spiritually separate. So the idea is to verify gradually that this presence is, or at least to verify that there's no evidence. There's no evidence that it is limited. There is no evidence that it is personal. To verify that this awareness is not a man, is not a woman, and then it has no borders, and then that it never changes, it never hurts. So, you know, this will be necessary in order to really be happy. Yeah, to be happy and have inner peace, not so much depending on conditions and factors and stuff like that. So this is my, I don't give such a big speech to, I just do very fast. But since we are here, you guys are into deep stuff, just wanted to give the context. Now, some question about the role of the therapist, you know? There was some question before. So let's say we have a client. So basically we are a big limitation. The client can go as far as where we are at best, you know? So, and how we, it's very much how I see myself, who I think I am. Basically who I am, who I think I am, is who I think other people are. So basically, even if you have a client that has absolutely no interest in non-duality, Zen, or stuff like that, and then it will be useless to go into all this and be like, you know, what's really very powerful, you know, what's powerful is that what's most effective, I believe, is that I know that I am this open, empty, aware presence that is God's presence. And then I know that this client is that too. So who they really are is also this presence. Now, they don't know that, it's fine with me, it's okay. And it may not be even appropriate or useful to say, hey, dude, you are not this, you are the divine presence. No, that's not useful. But just by us holding this meta attitude, you know, this actually helps. This helps a lot, you know. Yeah. I think that's good theory for now. I can go for a long time about this. was it?
Reminded a phrase that we can go deeper into that, and
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, whatever you feel comes up is important for you to share.
Yeah. So, I mean, whether we are non-dual therapists verifying that or not, being in this attitude, this being fully present. So as a therapist, I'm fully present, open, and really open to whatever comes up, free of judgments, free of agenda, not wanting anything from them. So one is kind and loving, encouraging this unconditional positive regard. What are you doing there, Alexandra?
Sorry.
This is rewires the whole parental thing, because we stand for the ideal parent. So being seen, heard, accepted fully. There's space for your feelings. There's space for your thoughts. So this rewires this, and it creates a safety for their stuff to be allowed. And most of our life, it's not allowed and it gets trampled. So also the fact that being like a more conscious facilitator, so you are really present there, and so your nervous system is, so the more you're able to have done your work, so we walk about with a more relaxed nervous system. So this acts as a co-regulator of the nervous system of the other person. And often, so that's often in it, it's a lot. It's already unusual. Just by coming here and all that being welcomed, then that leaves them. Of course, it may come back unless they dismantle the beliefs and all that, but there is like a release. Also, I'm teaching them, yeah, okay, let's go more personal, let's say, Mihai. So my agenda is I would like them to learn to become more aware, to become more conscious. So I want to teach them as soon as possible, appropriate to where they are, some degree of being present as opposed to being lost or identified. This is goal. This will help them be able to self-regulate, like awareness is the highest refuge. And so they learn tools how to self-regulate and this paperwork we used to do is very good, self-soothe. We have to do this bullshit paperwork that was, anyway, I got the terms, yeah. So to self-regulate and self-soothe, what I teach them that will help as a resource for them. Now, your own presence is self-soothing and self-regulating for the client. Now, what happens also is that in a room or even like this, I mean, our bodies are like seemingly separate, but our emotional bodies, our auras, so to say, they intermingle. So that's why it's very natural to feel what they are feeling. So you may feel, even before they said what's happening, feel stuff in your body, feel sensations, feelings, sadness, tightness, So that's natural. I mean, it's good to know it's natural. The problem is if I am not comfortable with my feelings, I'm not going to be so comfortable with more shit now. So actually, if the therapist has faced a lot of their most uncomfortable feelings and has realized that they come and go and it didn't hurt me, and then they left and they have less of that. Actually, the more free from our junk we are, the more we feel them. If we are full with our stuff, we can't feel them. So if we are in this open, welcoming, free space, their feelings are welcome, and actually they get transmutated and released by you doing it without even you trying to. What I do with other people's feelings, I do the same with my feelings. What can I do? Oh, wow, I'm aware of this. It's tight. It's actually easier because I don't have the me story. It's just suddenly I was fine and now I have this like, oh, and it's okay, you know. Still, unless they debunk and dismantle the causes of all that feeling, they will have it later. But you know, it still helps. You know, we are modeling. We are subconsciously, unconsciously modeling a safe, loving adult, which in itself is a missing experience. A lot connected to wounding is that all this happened, and then part of the healing process is that we are releasing some stuff, become aware of some stuff, and we are getting the missing experience. It's called, like, I never been, you know, you haven't feel safe. Now you feel safe with someone. So this is part of the healing, is to have the missing experience that you didn't have when you were 4 or 12 or 13. You have it later. It still counts, you know. So we can be, missing experience can be happening for us. You know, you work with women, or, you know, it's a very common that they will say, oh man, I feel safe. So, you know, so they have a chance to experience how it is to be with a man that doesn't want to get in their pants or wants something from them or wants, you know, and so they have the information, you know, and then it helps them to see other men like that and all this, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's very helpful, the role of the therapist.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have that clear understanding and have that neutral stance.
Yeah.
Just like you said, the modeling. I just recently took on 2 survivors of sex trafficking for free, just as like a karma type thing. Not like karma, but just what they call it, you know, karma clients. And just maintaining a neutral role and like having clear, healthy boundaries, and like you said, modeling that sense of a healthy masculine has already been so tremendous just the last couple of weeks with them. And yeah, I'm just deepening my understanding of that role more and more and more as we go along. So thank you for that. And yeah, I really like that, what you said of, you know, emptying ourselves of our own feelings so we can feel them.
Yeah.
And
I don't mean that in the moment.
No, I know.
It's a part of your path.
Yeah, but part of, I know that, but like part of the training that I went through was like, you know, to really take a good moment to set up the space for yourself, to be like that hollow bone in what they say in Native tradition, to get out of the way, minimize your ego as much as possible. And so for an hour before each session, you know, I'll do a lot of self-care and me time and really anchoring in that aspect to empty myself. Not that I'm just always doing it right then in the moment. It's a constant practice, but yeah, it's been really helpful to do that.
Yeah.
And then I can just really just be completely present.
Another role is just being witnessed. Actually, trauma heals through just being witnessed. Just being witnessed. It's yeah, it rewires the neuronal patterns, and it's just very necessary, you know.
I had a simpler question, because thank you for everything you've said. It feels so right. It just resonates with all my experience. So thank you for that. I have a very simple question. So I think I've had patients with which I was able to get them that feel that in the now, right now, in the room, everything is okay. But what I notice is that very fast, they pick up again the story of like you help them settle down, and here now everything is okay, but then they bring up the fact that, well, I lost my job, or I'm going to go home and I'm not in a good relationship, right? So things are not okay, right? So they can get a glimpse of that feeling in the now that it's okay, right? But then very fast they pick up that story of like, well, it's really not okay because we haven't solved anything really. I'm going to go back to the same spouse that I don't love, or I still lost a job. I'm going to find I'm going to find another one. I have to pay the rent. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
So I know that life is a series of nows in a way, but how do you convey that a little bit?
So I would, and this seems more like an unsophisticated client,
right.
Like just
right.
more like a just
right.
regular
right.
person. So empathizing the shit out of it.
Okay.
And like, oh wow, that's sad, that's scary,
Right.
that's this or
I
that.
know
So
all that,
and then, but then at some point, we need to have them explore, somehow is the feeling and all that, and somehow to start to go into identifying this belief. Identifying this belief, this we identify by, let's say, going with that feeling, going a little bit in the past or slowing it down to see what's the message. Let's say, oh, when you felt like this and all that, unsafe and all that, can be, and stabilize him, and then somehow to regressing into when was the first time you felt like this and all that, when my mother and all that. So you go to something which is more distant, and then this was happening, this or that, and then she just took the chocolate and then she left and she did this and slammed the door, and then so have them kind of explore this in a way that is safe. So you need to identify the level of trauma and the level of resources, and then have them, okay, what was the message that you got from your mother? What was the message? And then but they need to be slowed down in the head. This doesn't work. So they say, oh, that I'm
not good enough.
I'm not good enough. I'm never going to, never going to make anything good, and I don't deserve love, and this is, and then, contact that experience, empathize and all that. And then basically this needs to be processed out. This needs to be processed out, different way to process this, because this is an outdated belief. And then it's from 6-year-old. And then at some point I do engage in talking later, or at some point in psychoeducation, like, hey, after a deep somatic session, part of actually they get back together, so they function. I say, hey, when they are back out, hey, I just want to summarize some things, so you talk to their mind. Say, okay, so you're coming this, you got fired, you're freaking out, and then we stay with this. You notice how you feel this thing, which is very familiar, and it's like that. And then actually, as you stay with that, you notice that it took you when you were like 7 and this happened. And then we became aware that this belief was formed, that nothing matters and all that and whatever. And then we studied, how did you, once I identified the belief in a somatic session, I try to identify, okay, so how did you adapt to this? Oh, I call this, did this. So through that process of exploring this thing, that is loosening its grip a little bit. So I explained. So you see also the psychoeducation on the fact that these beliefs are very dangerous, meaning that is like a filter, And if you have this thing, you are always going to see this, and the reality will
reflect.
It'll reflect. You'll have fresh evidence that this is like that. So start to realize, hey, this is I need to look at it rather than be about them and hey, I'm a victim and all that. So then there are all kind of methods you can do here. You do the Byron Katie thing. You can adapt it to their level of, you can do Byron Katie even non-somatic, or you can do more somatic, so that they realize that that's and how does it play out. So they start to study their this subconscious organization and all that. So that's just that they self-soothe and self-regulate due to your presence. That's good, but then you need to go into it. Might not be in the same session.
Right. Thank you.
You know.
That's great.
You can educate them and give them homework.
Yeah, I like this actually homework, to give homework. I usually give homework in the form of some Eckhart Tolle. I mean, I say, hey man, you know, this book, Power of Now, this is very good for average Joe.
Yeah.
And it's very deep. And so, and, you know, 4 agreements.
Yes.
So there's more wisdom coming into this, like basic stuff, or Man, you know, The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida.
Power of Ted.
What?
The Power of Ted, David Emerald.
Yeah, I don't know it. So there are some various homework that you feel
Yeah,
this
that'll
is
draw the
essential
Yeah.
information. So you bring more wisdom. You don't have time too much to teach all this or give that. Also, I sometimes give some customized homework. Like, you know, I work with this lady for quite some time, and there's still, you know, there's still all men are not. So we come down to this. It's I'm not safe with men. It's not safe. Okay. And then so I try this, but keeps coming back to that. So I sometimes give some homework like, okay, just be open. If any time, you know, you meet someone and it feels like it's safe, you know, give them some homework to observe something about themselves, or to, you know, some customized homework. I usually don't have it. I realize for me that I have to go home or later it comes to me, you know, because then I go back to back. There's no time, but some homework. So I want to teach another time this Sedona release technique, which is a very powerful method from Lester Levinson, and also Hawkins used it, but it's very effective for unprogramming. Once you identify it, you study it, now what? Some ways to, Byron Katie is a good way to, shake that organization to be challenged. Sedona release technique and all that.
I was wondering if you could do Byron Katie on like his assumption that the awareness is personal. If you could do that.
Well, let me contemplate on that. And I wanted to do this with the reverse inquiry, but it's interesting. Yeah.
Byron Katie has a really good worksheet too.
Yeah.
Because you got to write it down.
Yeah.
Because we're so squirrely, right? We'll say, I didn't say that.
Yes.
So. Nice worksheet.
How do you feel about taking the break before we continue further?
Yeah, I feel good about that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you.